I hardly need to tell this audience that the economic situation is extremely serious. A perfect storm of global supply shocks is rolling through our economy simultaneously. Global demand shifting last year from services to goods and exacerbating supply chain bottlenecks. Russia's invasion of Ukraine causing energy and commodity prices to spike severely. And now a fresh wave of lockdowns in China, disrupting industrial production and adding to widespread backlogs in freight and in shipping. Now, while these are global forces, they are hitting families and businesses here at home. Just this morning's figures show that in April, CPI inflation was 9%. The Bank of England now expect inflation to peak at 10% later this year. And those inflationary pressures are starting to weigh on growth. But let me set out the way through this. Let me tell you the plan. A plan to help people with the cost of living and a plan for growth. So first, our plan to help with the cost of living. It is the Bank of England's role to control inflation, and they are rightly independent. Over the quarter century, since we took monetary policy out of the hands of politicians, inflation has averaged precisely 2%. And I know the governor and his team are completely focused on getting inflation back to target. Now, our role in government is to help cut costs for families. I cannot pretend that this will be easy. As I told the House of Commons yesterday, there is no measure that any government could take, no law we could pass that can make these global forces disappear overnight. The next few months will be tough. But where we can act, we will. We are providing £22 billion of direct support, with fuel duty cut by 5p a litre, council tax cut by £150, the warm homes discount increased to £150. We're making work pay by increasing the national living wage and cutting the universal credit taper rate. And in just a few weeks' time, we'll increase the national insurance threshold to £12,500, a £6 billion tax cut for 30 million working people. Because tackling high inflation is not just an economic necessity, it is a social and moral necessity. Those who suffer most are not the wealthiest who can find ways to protect themselves. It is always the poor. Our policy to date has focused on supporting people in work, and I make no apology for that. There is nobility in work. It is the best way out of poverty. And I'm proud that under this government, it always pays to work. But right now, we also have a collective responsibility to help the most vulnerable in our society. And so, as the situation evolves, our response will evolve. I have always been clear, we stand ready to do more. At the same time, we need to be careful. As Tony rightly warned us this week, at a time of severe supply restrictions, an unconstrained fiscal stimulus does risk making the problem worse. By pushing up prices still further, embedding high inflation expectations, and creating a vicious cycle of even higher interest rates and more pain for tens of millions of mortgage holders and small businesses. So even as we protect people from the worst of the crisis, we must continue to be responsible with the public finances and get borrowing sustainably under control and debt falling again. So, our plan will deal with the immediate impact of inflation, cutting costs for families, cutting the deficit. But we are also growing the economy.